Hello everybody. Do you have an idea for a true crime podcast? I publish true crime podcasts at my YouTube channel, Leader One Studios. I currently have 23,000 subscribers who are always looking for new true crime podcasts to listen to. This is an opportunity to build an audience quickly. If you're interested in joining the Leader One Podcast Network, send an email to morgansvariety@gmail.com and we can discuss the details. Hello everybody. Gratitude to everybody for listening, and additional heaps of gratitude to everybody who donates to the Patreon account. You keep the show going with your donations. As I keep the expenses paid, the more content I can create. You can donate at www.patreon.com/leader1. Or, if you'd like to make a one-time donation, you can send one through PayPal at morganrector331@hotmail.com. Remember, there is no minimum donation, no maximum donation. If $1 a month is all you feel like you can manage, especially in these difficult times, it's still appreciated. Thank you for everything and enjoy the show. Welcome to Human Monsters. Part 1. Leonard Lake. Leonard Lake was born in San Francisco on October 29, 1945. His parents had a troubled marriage, marred as it was by his father's alcoholism. Leonard had 2 siblings. At one point, Leonard's father, Elgin, declared that he'd had his fill of the marital strife and left the family. He moved to Seattle, Washington. Leonard's mother was left in dire financial straits. She decided to reunite with Elgin in Seattle. When she moved there, she left Leonard in the custody of his grandparents. The separation from his mother was traumatic and scarred him for life. It would give rise to emotional problems in the years to come. He never lived with his parents and siblings again, not even after they moved back to San Francisco later that year. Life with his grandparents was better from a financial standpoint, and Leonard enjoyed the comfort, privilege, and stability they provided. Chester Richardson was Leonard's cousin, and they had a friendly relationship. At one point, Leonard showed him a contained colony of mice he had in his bedroom. Eventually, the containment unit was overpopulated, and he had to get rid of the mice. He sold some and gave some away. The rest he decided to kill. While he could have done so in an instantaneous and painless fashion, he chose instead to use compounds that came with a chemistry set to dissolve the dead rodents. As Richardson recalled, they turned into an ugly green liquid. Experts on serial killers have noted a pattern of animal abuse and slaughter as part of an apprenticeship of sorts. It's training for homicide and body disposal. Leonard Lake had no tolerance and compassion for the weak and vulnerable. He hated people who lived on social assistance. He even remarked that, given his druthers, he wished he would poison the water supply of all people who rely on welfare as their income. This attitude extended to his brother Donald. Donald was struck by a train at the age of 9 and suffered critical brain injuries. In their sister Janet's words, a little slow. According to her, Leonard had no use for incompetent people, even if they were not at fault for their cognitive deficits. Leonard deemed Donald a, quote, welfare cheater because Donald was a recipient of Social Security disability payments. Leonard once pronounced, "He was a leech. he'd be better off dead. It was about this time that Leonard saw a film called The Collector. The plot of the movie concerns a man who abducts a woman and keeps her prisoner in his house. He eventually rapes her, and they engage in psychological warfare. Leonard was aroused by the scenes depicting the female captive as a victim to the aggressor's assaults. Leonard began to entertain similar scenarios of his own. He wanted to enslave a woman in an unseen containment unit, where she would be absolutely devoid of control over her person, and he could indulge his every whim with her, sexual or otherwise. He kept these fantasies a secret from everyone he knew. January 27th, 1964. Almost immediately after graduating high school, Leonard Lake enlisted in the Marine Corps. Unlike Leonard Gomer Pyle Lawrence in the film Full Metal Jacket, Leonard Lake enjoyed his time in the Corps. He was fascinated by the many tactics of firearm discharge he was taught. He was also intrigued by such areas as chemical warfare, guerrilla warfare, explosives, and demolition. He enjoyed driving military vehicles, large and small. He was able to expertly read maps. He committed field survival techniques to memory, filed away for future use. He was so enamored of military jargon that long after he was discharged, he would refer to any project as an operation, or ops. He loved camouflage clothing, or camis as they called them, and he would wear them for years after his discharge. Having finished with basic training, he underwent training to become a radar technician. He took advanced courses in North Carolina. During his time off, he would visit the home of an uncle in South Carolina. April 1965. At one of Lake's uncle's gatherings, Leonard was introduced to Karen Lee Minersman, the 18-year-old daughter of his uncle's friend. There was an instant attraction. Before Leonard returned to the base, he and Karen agreed to correspond by mail. They became sweet on each other until Leonard was dispatched to Vietnam. The letters between him and Karen dwindled until they petered out entirely. Leonard was reassigned to a position at California's Point Mugu Naval Air Station. His thoughts returned to Karen again. They resumed their correspondence. She confided in him, saying she was lonesome. She also said she was not very worldly at age 20 and hoped to find someone to direct her. She felt Leonard might fill the bill. March 1969. While on leave, Leonard Lake flew to Delaware to visit Karen. He proposed marriage and she accepted. She accompanied him to California, and they married less than a month later. As Karen recalled, there was nothing remarkable about the first few months of their marriage. However, some of Leonard's behaviors began to concern her. He would frequently joke with his Marine friends about trafficking Karen's body to them. She tried to find the humor in these remarks, but she was still embarrassed. She wanted to think it was just another manifestation of his robust libido, but it was the relentless quality of it that led to her to believe that maybe he was only half joking. After all, he was constantly pressuring her to wear revealing outfits to exhibit as much skin as possible. Leonard also became dominant to a degree she hadn't anticipated. He controlled her every move as an overbearing tyrant. The dynamic of their relationship became one of master and servant. She told him she needed someone to direct her, but she didn't expect he would run with it as he had. She didn't enjoy being treated like a possession. Lake pretty much viewed her as a toy at this point. She was relieved of his presence when he volunteered for a second tour of duty in Vietnam. His grandparents let Karen stay with them while he was gone. Leonard Lake thoroughly enjoyed this experience in Vietnam. He bragged about, quote, killing a lot of people, end quote. He said the hardest part was zipping up body bags. Odd, considering that his primary function in Vietnam was to repair radar equipment at the Da Nang Air Base. During his time in Vietnam, Leonard developed a nagging suspicion that Karen was unfaithful to him. Many soldiers experienced this and would discuss it with a chaplain. Lake was an atheist, so he met with a psychiatrist. The doctor's diagnosis: impending schizophrenia, accompanied by hysterical neurosis. He recommended that Lake should return home for treatment as an inpatient. Lake was sent back to California at the end of 1970. During his time of treatment and evaluation, Lake was determined to be, quote, a danger to himself and to others. This diagnosis greatly disturbed Karen. She later remembered an incident where Leonard invaded a storage facility in the hospital to steal government property. Naturally, he failed to find what he was looking for. This sent him spiraling down into a debilitating depression. He blamed the failure to retrieve these materials on a spell of diarrhea. When he returned to his bed, he ate all the chocolate he could get his hands on, feeling that chocolate was a reliable source of constipation. In the event that he became constipated, he would return to the storage area. January 1971, Leonard Lake received a medical discharge from the Marine Corps due to his deteriorating mental health. Leonard and Karen struggled financially due to the part-time and temporary work that came in and out of their lives. One solution Leonard came up with was that she should become a stripper. Karen flat out refused. Eventually, she warmed to the idea since she realized it was a surefire way to earn the money they needed. She auditioned and began stripping in earnest. Meanwhile, Leonard stayed at home and tended to an organic garden. Karen was not only unhappy with this arrangement, but Leonard became as domineering as he was before he was dispatched to Vietnam. He would inflict what he dubbed, quote, controlled, unquote, beatings. He abused her strategically, starting with a light blow to her face with his open hand, following up with another using his fist. Throughout, Leonard would continually ask her if she enjoyed his punishments. The beatings were his idea of foreplay. Leonard controlled all the money that came into the household. He was also the director of their social activities. Sex became a grueling process of indentured servitude for Karen. He commanded her to pose nude for photos. He filled a photo album of nude shots of Karen. He introduced the idea of swinging with other couples. He said he needed to pursue sex elsewhere because he could no longer climax within the rubric of monogamy. Karen acknowledged years later that they met other couples for this purpose, but the mate swapping only occurred once. Leonard's sexual proclivities notwithstanding, some of his behavior was bizarre and worried Karen. He hated telephones, though he eventually gave his consent to have a line installed in their house. He gave the phone company a pseudonym, claiming it would prevent telephone solicitors from contacting them. His explanation was that if somebody asked for the fake name, they would know they were not being contacted by somebody they knew and trusted. Long before the age of VHS, Leonard was not able to purchase a copy of the cinematic adaptation of The Collector. So he purchased the book. He pressured Karen to read it. He insisted it was different from any other book, though this was likely true of every other book he owned. Another thing that made Karen uneasy was the arsenal of weapons Leonard kept in the house. A .25 caliber automatic, a 9mm handgun, and a small pistol. One day they somehow disappeared, and Leonard accused Karen of stealing them. According to Karen, Leonard had a god complex, and this description was not hyperbolic. He truly perceived himself as some sort of deity. If someone rhetorically spoke the phrase, "Oh God," Leonard would answer by saying, "Yes." She insisted he was not being facetious. Despite his predilection for swinging, Leonard flew into a rage if Karen paid attention to another man beyond the boundaries of his control. One night when a patron of the strip club walked Karen to her car, Leonard pulled up. He flew into a rage. He threatened to throw her out of the house. Sure enough, when Karen returned home, all her clothing had been thrown onto the front yard. She gathered them together and slept in the car. The next day after her shift, she discovered that someone broke into her car and removed all the clothing. She discovered soon after that Leonard was to blame. Karen eventually moved into an apartment on her own. Though he didn't try to persuade her to return, he became vindictive and harassed her on occasion. He once broke into her apartment and burned holes into her clothing with acid. She once caught him after he broke in. He verbally abused her, filling her in on all the information he gleaned about her life based on stalking. She realized he wasn't finished controlling her life. Eventually, this behavior fell by the wayside, and they got divorced in 1972. Janet recalled that the only time she saw Leonard cry was after he was divorced from Karen. She developed a theory that this event ignited a misogynistic rage within Leonard that was inextinguishable. It started with his mother, who made him feel rejected, and after his marriage to Karen, he would only see women as a source of rejection and emotional torture. Karen hadn't heard the last of Leonard Lake. Leonard's life fell to instability. He scraped by on the meager earnings from menial jobs. He lived with relatives. He missed Karen enough that he wanted to replace her and enjoy the benefits of female companionship. He placed an ad in the personal section of the Berkeley Barb. In late 1972, he met Jennifer Gordon. A friendship soon started, which led to deeper intimacy. Jennifer described the trajectory of their relationship from its blissful honeymoon period onwards. The relationship metamorphosed. At first, he was like someone you see in the movies. Sweet, gentle, caring. He seemed concerned, like someone you would really like to know. After the first 3 months, the sex became, in Jennifer's view, kinky, as she recalled. I was stupid, not naive, stupid. Our sex became aberrant. There was bondage and swinging. He liked to tie me up. He wasn't mean or hard-hearted. It was kind of funny, in a way. Leonard never allowed Jennifer to tie him up. It was all about him being in control, an emotional necessity for him. Leonard persuaded her to earn money through prostitution. She insisted that she was not coerced into it. She did it to please him. He took numerous nude photographs of Jennifer, at one point filling 3 albums. Upon request, she convinced a few of her girlfriends to be photographed for him, striking provocative poses. He once took photos of Jennifer sleeping in the nude. No matter how much Jennifer indulged Leonard sexually, it never seemed to be enough. When she decided to resign from prostitution, he became irate with her, and they fought frequently. Alarm bells went off when he began to talk about snuff films. He said that making one would be the, quote, ultimate sexual high, unquote. She contemplated the possibility of him ending up in prison as a result of such activity. He told her that if he did, he would commit suicide by ingesting cyanide. He claimed to her that a hollow spot in one of his teeth contained the compound, but she didn't believe him. Their relationship ended after a particularly heated argument that ended with her pinned to the floor by his foot. She moved out the next day. That was in June 1973. Leonard Lake's mind was preoccupied, bifurcated into twin obsessions. The first involved abducting a young woman and keeping her captive as a sex slave to realize all his lascivious fantasies. The second involved a nuclear war, which he considered to be not only inevitable, but imminent. Given his hunger for total control, he decided the former would be considerably easier to achieve. He also desired a need to flee the city. He wanted to live in a rural and isolated location where he could apply the skills he learned in the Marine Corps. The purpose would be to live as a survivalist amid the nuclear winter. In the event of finding a desirable location, he would build a bunker, which would be used to store the provisions that would keep him alive. Unable to put this off any longer, Lake packed up his belongings and drove north. He settled in Ukiah, which is approximately 130 miles north of San Francisco. Part of Lake's life in Ukiah involved being employed by a government-funded agency that built and renovated low-income housing. He was eventually promoted to crew leader. He also enrolled in classes at Mendocino College, where he studied animal sciences and meat cutting. He was keen to know which tools could be most effective at slicing through flesh and bone. Yeah, nothing ominous about that. He also took up a position teaching boys about survivalism. After living in a flea bag motel for a time, he set to work on the bunker of his dreams. It was about this time when Leonard met a flower child who owned land in the area. She was called Venus Salem. She wished to upgrade her cabin and plant an orchard, but she was inexperienced in such pursuits and would need assistance. She met a man who appeared to be ideal in bringing about these changes, Leonard Lake. They met at a festival when she overheard him talking about alternative energy sources. She told him about the situation with her cabin, and they became collaborators. They made a deal wherein he would do the work for 6 months, with his compensation taking the form of living on the property rent-free. As Venus recalled, "I was naive." She said she was so open and green at the time that she could be very easily exploited. The arrangement worked out very well for the both of them at first. She found him charming and helpful. Then their acquaintanceship led to a friendship. However, there were occasions when they didn't see eye to eye in terms of what constituted a good time. For instance, she wasn't keen on seeing his photo albums filled with nude photos of his ex-girlfriends. He suggested to Venus that she should emulate the models she saw in the albums. She refused. As they got to know each other better, Lake revealed personal details about his childhood. He still deeply despised his brother Donald, saying he was mooching off his mother and would be better off dead. It made Venus shudder when Leonard expressed an interest in killing his brother. She wondered if he was serious about killing him. It didn't exactly allay her anxieties when she discovered that Leonard kept a pair of handcuffs and a rifle in his cabin. He told her about survivalism and how he had buried some of his survivalist supplies on the property. She was put off by his treatment of his friend Charles Gunner. He had gained a lot of weight, and Leonard resented him for it. He took him on steep hiking trails and demanded that he walk up and down them at a rapid pace. Leonard admitted to Venus that he was disgusted by Charles. Things worsened in Leonard's relationship with Venus. He would criticize her and her friends. Venus felt that she had been manipulated. One day when she confronted him about it, he pushed her off a ladder. She was terrified of and disillusioned by him. She wanted out of their contract. Leonard offered to buy the property, and she reluctantly agreed to sell. A woman who lived close to Leonard's cabin developed a friendly neighbor relationship with him. Sometimes she invited him to dinner, and he would tell her some of the strange stories he told to Venus. He mentioned that he hated his brother Donald with a vengeance. He bragged about his experiences in Vietnam. He said it was there where he learned how to be a survivalist. Sometimes he fired his weapons for target practice, which made her uncomfortable. As she put it, he knew the bylaws, but he ignored them. He flirted with her, which partially involved insinuating that he wanted to take nude photos of her. She was nonplussed and refused outright. She was downright outraged when he suggested that her 10-year-old daughter should pose for him naked. He told her about something called Operation Miranda, which was a reference to legal issues he was fighting. He would say they would never take him alive, which she found to be bizarre. He told her that if a nuclear holocaust were to occur, He wouldn't suffer the effects because he kept cyanide capsules concealed on his person. He was a tapestry of red flags. He concluded by saying, "I carry death in my pocket." Leonard Lake would ask women he barely knew to pose for erotic photos. He even asked men who worked for him if they would pose with their girlfriends. They refused. Women and sex were a recurring motif in conversations with Lake. As one employee recalled, he was perverted about women, had this fascination with sexual things. Lake would share his photo albums with the men who worked for him. Once Leonard invited them to a party at what was dubbed the Ranch. One member of his crew, a teenager at the time, remembered what went down. Everybody got naked. It was eat, drink, and be merry. It was really exciting being around naked women. Leonard confided in a friend at this time, telling him that if any of his neighbors trespassed on his property, he would shoot them and bury them in some pits he dug. Summing up his feelings about Leonard Lake, a neighbor named Robert Tagnoli said, "He was kind of a creepy guy. You really needed to be on your guard around him." The Davis family lived on a property that was located next to the ranch. Their teenage daughter, Darlene, met and became acquainted with several of the hippie types who lived in the area. One day in 1977, there was a heavy rainstorm. Leonard Lake approached the Davises and asked for permission to park his truck next to their driveway, since the rain made the road into his property impossible to enter. They invited him indoors and gave their consent to let him park by the house. Darlene, then 13 years old, took in the sight of 31-year-old Leonard Lake with admiration and fascination. He cut a very masculine figure in his camouflage clothing. When he left, she watched him go through a window as he unloaded a 3-wheel all-terrain vehicle from his truck and rode it away. Eventually, Lake became more closely acquainted with the Davises. Darlene would help out when her father helped Leonard with projects, and she developed a friendship with Lake. He would take her for rides on his ATV, which she loved. She kept these experiences secret from her parents. He asked her if she had boyfriends and would inquire about her activities with them. Lake kissed her one day, and it was a deeply emotional experience for her. She visited his home with her family on a number of occasions. In December, Darlene joined Lake for a clandestine meeting at his house. He took her virginity that day. She confessed that she was in love with him. Years later, she disclosed that he was the best lover she ever had. As she put it, he was extremely gentle and sensual. She was surprised later to discover his interest in sadism and masochism. As she put it, he wasn't into that stuff at all with me. He did propose threesomes, an idea from which she recoiled, and he made no effort to pressure her into it. He did show her his photo albums and persuaded her to pose nude. He told her about his aspirations to become an elite survivalist so he could exist in the ashes of a nuclear war. She didn't cotton to the idea of wearing a necklace containing cyanide. In mid-1980, Darlene was 16 years old, and Lake proposed marriage. She loved him, but she felt she was too young to marry. She wanted to wait at least until her 18th birthday. He was disappointed, saying he would probably run away by then and become a mercenary soldier. He told her he needed a wife then and couldn't wait out the 2 years. Darlene convinced him that it would be better to wait. They continued to have sex, even after her parents forbid her from meeting with him. Eventually, they sent her to a boarding school. A woman who was approached by Lake at this time to pose for erotic photographs took a look at his albums. She commented on the images she saw. "I was shocked to see girls no more than 10 or 12 years old, semi-nude. There was one picture of a young boy and girl, partially unclothed, hugging each other." In late summer of 1980, Leonard Lake met a hippie woman who went by the name Cricket. Her legal name was Claralyn Balaz. She was receptive to his sexual proclivities, indulging him in such, and even posed for nude photographs without persuasion. Whatever he wanted to do, whether it involved threesomes with another woman or BDSM, she was game for it. She loved the surroundings of the ranch. While Leonard fell in love with Cricket, he still wrote letters to Darlene Davis. He often enclosed several nude photos of Cricket. Darlene raised no objections. Due to this, Leonard began sending her photos of him having sex with Cricket. He told her she moved in with him. He told Darlene that not only did Cricket know about her, but she was extremely jealous of Darlene. He even told her that she was bisexual and wanted a woman to have threesomes with. Lake introduced Cricket to his neighbors, but by this point they no longer wanted to socialize with him, suspecting as they did that he had been stealing from them. A number of power tools and firearms had gone missing. His discharge of guns on the property continued to be a bone of contention among his neighbors. After one of them pointed out that a stray bullet could kill someone, Lake said, "I could kill everyone on the ranch, one by one. I could go to every house with an automatic weapon, and no one would ever know." One day a storage shed belonging to Lake burst into flames. Local volunteer firefighters helped him extinguish the fire. When his trove of ammunition began to explode, they all leapt behind trees to avoid being hit by bullets and shrapnel. Lake had been gradually wearing out his welcome in the community, but the last straw came when he was caught stealing building materials from the housing rehabilitation firm for which he was employed. They called the police. He was sentenced to a year of probation. A local ranch committee asked him to sell his property and leave. He was outnumbered, so he and Cricket packed their belongings and left the area. Leonard and Cricket drove to a hamlet called Philo. It had been advertised as an ideal location to find a haven from a nuclear holocaust. The motel was in need of someone to stay and manage the operation, so Cricket and Lake decided to take advantage of the opportunity. She was hired to work as a teacher's aide at an elementary school. Lake's libido was never satisfied for long, and with Cricket's willingness to experiment, he was even more of a sexual thrill-seeker than ever. He placed an ad in the Bay Guardian, which was published in San Francisco. He stated that he was offering employment to someone who was willing to relocate to a rural community to help operate a small motel. He received a response from 18-year-old Connie Richards. Cricket and Leonard met with her and explained that she would receive free room and board in exchange for doing motel chores. Connie soon realized that what Leonard and Cricket really wanted was a new sex partner. As Connie put it, it was mainly for Cricket, not Leonard. I wasn't really into what Cricket wanted. Connie chose to stay anyway. She was curious about the arrangement. She recalled what she witnessed at that time. "I saw sadomasochistic paraphernalia. Just the basic stuff, nothing extreme. There were eye hooks for securing ropes at each corner of the bed Cricket and Leonard shared, along with a mask and whip." Connie was informed that Lake liked to bind Cricket and whip her. Connie never witnessed it. Connie did have a threesome with them, but she discovered that bisexuality did not arouse her. She had sex with Leonard one-on-one a few times, with Cricket's consent. Leonard told her that Cricket was the kinky one. Leonard once revealed to Connie during pillow talk that he had wanted to have sex with his sister Janet. He said he never actually did it. It was just a fantasy. When he asked her to pose nude for him, the most she would do was pose with her shirt unbuttoned. He continued to write racy letters to Darlene, telling her that he and Cricket were selling their homemade VHS porn. While performing chores at the motel, Connie discovered Leonard's cache of firearms. She had no interest in guns, so she put them out of her mind. He told her about keeping cyanide capsules on him to prevent a long-term incarceration. September 13th, 1981. Leonard Lake and Cricket got married. 3 months after she met Lake and Cricket, Connie realized she was only being used as a sex object and resigned from her position at the motel. Part 2. Charles Ng. 2 weeks after Connie's departure, a new arrival came in the form of Marine Charles Ng. He had gotten into trouble and was court-martialed. He went AWOL and needed a place to hide out. Charles was an ideal fit for the situation. Ng was willing to work for room and board, and he shared Leonard Lake's enthusiasm for survivalism. There was something else the men had in common. A woman who worked as an escort in San Francisco was appointed to service a John who went by the name Tom Myers. After he paid her in advance, he asked if he could photograph her. After taking her out to dinner, he brought her to a motel, where he was to take the photos. When she came out of the bathroom ready to pose, a short Asian man attacked her with knife in hand and forced her down on the bed. He stabbed a space on the mattress adjacent to her head repeatedly. From there, the man raped her while Myers watched. While she was raped, Myers said to her, "This is something we do all the time, but we usually kill the girls we've been with. But I like you, so we're not going to kill you." The men were later identified as Leonard Lake and Charles Ng. Leonard, Cricket, and Charles decided to resign from their positions at the motel. When they learned that a local woman was starting a youth camp, she leapt at the chance to hire Leonard Lake after learning of his experience in the military and knowledge of survivalism. The owner of the motel was relieved when he heard about this. He had been told by customers that Lake engaged in voyeurism, watching them as they sat naked in a hot tub. Another time when the owner dropped by, Lake was sitting at a table with several hand grenades in front of him. The owner said, "Are those live?" Lake said, "Go ahead and pull the pin and find out." The owner found Lake's relentless discussion about military operations and nuclear holocausts tiresome, so he was happy to see him go. A man named Ernie Pardini lived in a trailer about 50 yards away from Leonard Lake's new home at Indian Creek. After graciously agreeing to help Lake and his cohorts move in, he was reprimanded by Lake after he and Ng let slip a piece of furniture. Ernie nearly read him the riot act, but he kept his cool and they finished the job. Pardini was puzzled by Lake and Ng's habit of wearing military camouflage, as if they were a two-man army. Ultimately, he didn't think it was worth an inquiry. After getting to know Lake better, he found him pleasant and personable. Ng, on the other hand, was introverted and solemn, though unfailingly polite. In fact, Ng was so devoid of ego, he didn't even mention that December 24th, quickly approaching, was to be his 21st birthday. Lake told Pardini that his goal was to build a bunker that could withstand the effects of nuclear Armageddon. He also showed him his collection of nude photographs. He asked Pardini if he could take pictures of his daughters. Pardini wasn't having it. Unbeknownst to him at the time, Lake had been taking pictures of Pardini's wife tending to their garden. Pardini grew tired of Lake. Lake had developed a sexual obsession with Pardini's wife. He even approached her about watching videos with Cricket. She assumed he was referring to porn, so she declined. One day, Pardini returned from a trip and found that his wife was in tears. When he asked her what the trouble was, she said that Lake attacked her verbally, subjecting her to harsh criticism. Pardini marched over to Lake's house and ordered him to stay away from his wife. Without stating it explicitly, he made it abundantly clear that he would beat him up if he saw the necessity in doing so. Lake told him he was too much of a coward to fistfight him, but might return with some guns. Pardini told him he wasn't intimidated, because he owned a few guns as well. The FBI found out that Charles Ng was hiding out at Indian Creek Ranch. Due to faulty intelligence, the FBI raided the motel where they believed Ng was still staying. Ing was noted to be armed and dangerous, carrying a .357 caliber revolver. He was a proficient martial artist and was quite handy with nunchucks. He also specialized in demolition, having stored the components of a homemade bomb in his locker at the Marine base from which he fled. The agents redirected their activity after finding out that Ing was staying at the Indian Creek compound. He was spotted jumping from a bedroom window. He ran in the direction of a nearby lumber company. As he was about to climb a fence, he was detained and cuffed. He was put in a helicopter and taken to the Ukiah County Jail. Leonard Lake was seen walking along a fenced-in area behind the main house. He was headed for the workshop building. An officer commanded him to halt and remain where he was standing. Lake turned around and ran to the house. He went inside. Accompanied by members of the FBI's SWAT team, Officer Satterwhite went into Ing's room. There he found a couple of rifles, nunchucks, and a billy club. When Lake was found, he was gathering firearms and ammunition together as an arsenal. He said a few of the guns belonged to him, but that he had no connection to the contraband items. Leonard described Charles Ing as a guest who helped with odd chores. Lake gave written permissions for the officers to search the compound. They found 6 handguns, 6 rifles, a few of them fully automatic, hand grenades, dynamite, a silencer, tear gas, and numerous boxes of ammunition. They found other guns in Ing's room, along with martial arts weapons. Lake was arrested. Cricket posted bail in the morning. He was slapped with several firearm-related charges, which was certain to result in a prison sentence, or at least it seemed so at the time. He still was adamant that he would not do time in prison, but he wasn't ready to kill himself. He decided that he would go on the lam and live by his wits. He still had the goal of building the survivalist bunker of his dreams and kidnapping a woman to make her his sex slave and do whatever he wanted with her. This kept him going. After failing to appear in court, Leonard Lake was officially a fugitive. Charles Ing was on a military plane en route to the military base from which he escaped. Cricket declined to live with Leonard as a fugitive, but agreed to meet up with him on occasion for R&R. She moved in with her parents in San Bruno. Now that he was on the run, Leonard Lake never stayed in one town for long. He stayed in motels, the homes of friends, and occasionally stayed with relatives. He kept himself financially afloat by committing petty crimes like theft and drug sales, primarily marijuana. He referred to these activities as operations. He used a host of pseudonyms with which to identify himself. There was a period when Leonard Lake met women through many means, placing ads in personal columns among them. He had some brief successes, but came nowhere near a sure thing or even a long-lasting connection. It was about this time that he acquired a VHS copy of The Collector. The night he bought it, he wrote this in his journal. The Collector. Has it really been near 20 years I've carried this fantasy? And Miranda. How fitting my lovely little prisoner, the future. I suppose in my way I am the same wimp as the hero, and in my way just as crazy. I have no doubt that we wimps have been compensating for our inabilities since the dawn of history. Sad, really. Still, how can we die if we never live? Anybody wondering to what extent Cricket was involved in Leonard Lake's crimes should consult this statement written as a legal document by an attorney. There was a conspiracy in this case, but that conspiracy existed between Leonard Lake and his girlfriend/wife/ex-wife/girlfriend Claralyn Balaz, a.k.a. Cricket, and no one else. The existence of the conspiracy is evidenced in Lake's diary. Cricket read the diary and knew of the Miranda Project as early as 1980. She also assisted Lake by recruiting potential female victims to be photographed under the ruse of portraying him as a professional photographer. Lake and Cricket created a homemade video of themselves in March 1983. It featured them cavorting nude on a bed, giggling, engaging in various sexual antics, and interspersing erotic conversation with plans to lure women into Lake's web. They were shown looking at photographs of women during a break in a sadomasochistic sex episode, and joking about the women as potential victims of the Miranda Project. Cricket knew Lake was a fugitive from the 1982 arrest. She knew Lake assumed the names of other persons and introduced him under a false name to numerous people. On the last day of March, Leonard wrote the following in his journal. "Once I had a wife. She was my connection to the world. Through her, I could love, trust, believe in things others are allowed to believe in. I could have died for her, killed for her even, gone to jail, give up my freedom in exchange for the security of her love. Once I had a wife. Now I have no ties to the world. I am both above it and removed from it. Oh, there are those I love, my sisters, even Cricket, still, but none of these bind me to the order of existence. I am free to die, with no responsibility. All I love alone. Freedom, an empty privilege, but still one I must bear with determination. Amusing, our land of the free is not prepared to deal effectively with a truly free man. What can they do to one who carries cyanide pills in his pockets? When death holds no fears, when there are no responsibilities beyond the next meal? Society, you are being socked, and you don't understand by who or why. And if you did, you are powerless against one who is not afraid to die." He wrote this in early May. "I am a dangerous person. Society would worry if they knew I existed and what I was up to. But more than my victim, I am the most suitable victim. I don't exist in the official world. No job, no taxes, no one to keep track of me day to day. If I were to disappear, it might be months before anyone would even wonder. And then, what could they do?" While Charles Ng served his 18-month prison sentence, he became friends with veteran John Carty. They bonded over their military experience and an enthusiasm for martial arts. Ng revealed to him that he intended to amass a unit of men to become a paramilitary unit that would rob banks and steal high-end items at military bases, like weapons. As Ng elaborated on these plans, Carty grew uneasy. As Carty put it, he went from simple bank jobs to talking about stealing military missiles and shooting down 747s. He also recalled that Ng would chant slogans like "No pain, no gain" and "Kill, kill, kill." Ng wanted to carry out events of mass destruction as well, like the bombing of a bus station or jetliner. He loved the idea of killing large numbers of people instantaneously. Another of Ng's favorite topics of conversation was the sexual torture of women. As Carty recalled, he had a real imagination for it. Ng told Carty about Lake's bunker and showed him some photos he had received through the mail. Carty revealed what he had been told about the bunker years later. It was going to have a torture room in it, and he was going to have video cameras. It was out in the woods somewhere. It was at this juncture that John Carty decided he would opt out of Ng's plans for the future. After being sidetracked by his personal relations with women and the never-ending endeavor to sell marijuana, Leonard Lake resumed his pre-nuclear Holocaust preparations. He bought several storage drums and filled them with such provisions as medicines, food, weapons, clothing, photographs, money, and other personal care items. Lake was allergic to cats, and when he discovered that a mother cat and her kittens had sought refuge in his home, He killed them all. Operation Miranda was still in the planning stages, as always. He had begun to excavate a hillside nearby to build his survivalist bunker / sex slave terror hut. By September that year, he came to realize he had chosen the wrong location. He moved to Calaveras County. He enjoyed the natural surroundings of this area and resumed his construction of his dream survivalist bunker and sex dungeon. In the meantime, he continued to meet women through various ruses so that he could recruit victims and, in turn, realize his sexual torture fantasies. He outlined his idea of the perfect woman in a journal entry. While I enjoy company, I don't want an independent guest or girlfriend around for too long or too often. I enjoy quiet, not having to entertain or clean up after others. People around seem to get in the way, get into things, attempt to change things. When Miranda arrives, she'll be on a strictly helpmate basis. She'll be around when I need help, do what she's told, and to go to her room when I'm finished with her. Lately, life seems to be too often a beauty contest. The prettiest girl gets the job, the most opportunities, the richest man. The best-looking man gets the same. People help out the person with the best smile, nicest personality, etc. Completely understandable, but us not-so-great-looking types frequently take second or third best at everything. I live to correct this. June 29th, 1984. Charles Ng was released from prison. Being a Chinese national, he was only able to enlist in the Marine Corps with the use of falsified citizenship documents. This is likely why he wasn't deported to Hong Kong after his release. July 9th, Cricket picked Charles Ng up at the San Francisco airport. Leonard Lake and Charles were now reunited, and they spent many joyous hours in wide-ranging conversation. They were staying at an apartment in San Francisco that Lake was staying in temporarily. He still sold pot in San Francisco, and it was there where he met women he considered as torture victims. Everything Leonard had been preparing for the Miranda Project was right up Charles's alley, and they looked forward to carrying out their plans. Leonard hoped Charles would be receptive to his ideas. If he had any doubts, they proved to be unfounded. During the first few weeks Charles Ng lived in San Francisco, he moved around frequently. He stayed at Leonard's apartment, his aunt's home, and Leonard's sister Janet. He adopted the alias Mike Kimoto after having stolen a wallet belonging to a man with that name. He eventually was hired by a moving company to work as a laborer. Lake applied to the company for a similar position. Both men submitted false information regarding their identities. Only Charles was hired, and he began working on September 28th. After neglecting his journal for 2 months, Leonard Lake wrote the following entry. I have learned that my programming in my youth, that which is called morality, either was not given or was given poorly. To all purposes, save a very few, I have no morality, accepted as fact. In terms of life or death, neither seems to move me. The past 2 months saw Miranda come to fruit. That taught me more. The perfect woman is one who is totally controlled, a woman who does exactly what she is told and nothing else. There are no sexual problems with a totally submissive woman. There are no frustrations. There is only pleasure and contentment. I have observed, I believe, one woman who found this not only acceptable, but even desirable. I doubt this will be the norm, and in this case, the woman's low mentality probably affected the discovery. A whore, druggie, and fool. Still, I enjoyed using her, and seemingly she enjoyed the use. I do hope I do better next time, however. Meanwhile, Charles Ng didn't exactly endear himself to his coworkers. He would frequently chant, "No gun, no fun," and "No kill, no thrill." He came at them with another one, Daddy dies, mommy cries, baby fries. April 14th, 1985. Kathy Allen was an employee of a Safeway supermarket. She received a call during her shift. She was notified that her boyfriend had been shot. Her supervisor allowed her to take a brief leave of absence to support her boyfriend. In the parking lot of the store, she got into a copper-colored Honda Prelude. A witness who saw her departure said it was driven by a Caucasian male about 40 years of age. Shortly thereafter, Kathy spoke to a friend at her motel room. He recalled that she seemed to be in a hurry and that she was with a man who acted, quote, kind of weird, unquote. She said he wanted to take photos of her. She promised to call him back after she finished her business with the man. Wilseyville. Kathy found herself imprisoned in a bunker room. She was confined there for several days. Soon after her arrival, she was stripped naked, and a video camera was set up to record her distress. Leonard Lake spoke to her, implying that her boyfriend, Mike Carroll, had been slaughtered. The manager of the Safeway store received a call from Kathy. She asked for a 4-week leave of absence. He later received a typed letter stating that she had moved to Wilseyville and she wanted all her important employment documentation forwarded to a post office box in the area. Leonard Lake recorded a sequel to his video of Kathy Allen. She wore nothing but pantyhose that had been torn in the crotch. She was hunched over Charles Ng, who was naked. She massaged his back. Ng laid face down on a bed. Kathy straddled his legs and rubbed his lower back and buttocks. At one point, Ng said, "Get my ass, too." He lifted his left leg and caressed her buttocks and left hip with his heel. In the third installment of the Kathy Allen series, Leonard Lake set the camcorder on a tripod and took several still photos of her. She was wearing lingerie. Her wrists were handcuffed and her ankles were bound. Lake walked into the frame, took the sight of her in and said, "Not bad. Anyway, I very much intended to keep my promise, and I couldn't say that I have. I told you there's a lot of things I'd like to do with you that I know you wouldn't like." Lake removed the handcuffs, but the restraints on her ankles remained. He took a walk around the room, adjusting the lights he set up for the video. His German shepherd appeared in the doorway. This made Kathy nervous. It seemed to her like Leonard Lake was capable of anything, even zoophiliac rape. As he adjusted his 35mm film camera and a floodlight, he said, "Would you look over here, please? And even though it shouldn't make any difference to me in terms of what you like and what you don't like, I've tried to respect your feelings as best I can in these matters. On the other hand, when I tell you to do things, I tell you things that are very important to me, that I want you to do." As he adjusted other lighting equipment, Lake gave her more instructions on how he wanted her to model. "Can you, turn your head around? Yeah, that's it. Just lay on the bed if you want. I really want you, or expect you as a matter of fact, to do them, and, you haven't." Kathy said, "What haven't I done?" "I'm referring to, me telling you not to beat on the doors and make noise. I didn't beat on it. It's just that she knew there was no arguing with your captor when there is little to no hope of ever being released." Lake said, "I'm afraid you did beat on it. Those latches were especially picked. Well, I don't know if you beat or pushed, but that metal would never break." He went on to accuse her of putting immense pressure on the hinges of a door from the inside of a room in which she had been incarcerated. He said, "This leaves me somewhat disturbed, and I realize no one heard you. I showed you those cyanide pills, and I'm trying to tell you the truth, that they're never going to take me alive. Hopefully no one's ever going to catch me at these weird things, but if someone ever did, I'd die. The fact that you'd die is immaterial right now. I don't want you to die, and I don't want to die, and the best way to accomplish that is for neither one of us to get caught. So, I suppose my question is, what do I do to prove to you that I'm serious about this? Kathy said, "Are you asking me if you can hit me?" Lake knelt on the bed and placed his face just inches away from Kathy's. "No, I'm not asking you if I can hit you. I can very much hit you, very easily. I don't want to hit you, Kathy." No, let me take that back. Erotically, it would turn me on. I would get a great thrill out of it. But let's say I'm still trying to keep a little bit of sanity, okay? I'm having a little war within myself between what I want to do and what I think I should do, because I promised you, and that is what we might call it, the decent thing to do. I'm going to go hammer those hinges back flat again, and I don't want to find them bent again at all. I don't want to hear anything. Let me put this in the strongest possible terms. It was like the first night when I told you I wanted you to drink me. It ever arises again, if there's any circumstance whatsoever that leads me to think that you're even attempting to make noise, it's immaterial as to whether I hear you or anyone else hears you. You'll be whipped very severely. Now tell me you understand." Kathy said, whimpering, "I understand." "Okay, good. Some girls are into pain, Kathy, and I don't think you're one of them. If you were, I wouldn't feel so guilty about yielding to my lesser impulses. It's a fact that you're partially a stranger, that you don't know my name, and that you're going to go away, and I'm never going to have to deal with you again. Rats! That I can even talk to you like this. Needless to say, the common person on the street, I don't confess my sadistic tendencies to. I don't know if you're flattered or not. There's no reason you should be, but if nothing else, I'm being honest with you." He released her right arm from the shackles. He struggled with the other. He asked her to remove it herself, and she did. She noted that the other restraint was cutting off her circulation. His next move was to instruct her to remove her jeans and panties and put on a pair of blue bikini panties with a matching sheer chemise. Most striking were the looks of terror and despair on her face. Lake gave instructions for modeling and costume changes, and Kathy continued to pose. Lake once wrote in his journal that he was convinced he could condition a female slave to the point where she would not only get used to being ordered around, but would eventually come to enjoy it. The last frame of that video represents the last time anybody beyond Leonard Lake and Charles Ng would ever see Kathy Allen alive. The following people who have associated with Leonard Lake and Charles Ng disappeared: Donald Lake, Charles Gunner, Maurice Rock, Cheryl Okoro, Randy Jacobson, Harvey Dubbs, Deborah Dubbs, Sean Dubbs, Paul Cosner, Clifford Parenteau, Jeffrey Gerald, Michael Carroll, Kathleen Allen, Lonnie Bond, Brenda O'Connor, Lonnie Bond Jr. That list represents 2 infants, 4 women, and 10 adult males. Speculation has it that there could have been more. Leonard's luck was running out. One day when Charles Ng stole a vise from a hardware store, he got caught, and Leonard stepped up to resolve the situation by paying the clerk for the merchandise. This didn't satisfy the clerk, and the police were notified of the theft. When Officer Daniel Wright showed up, he approached Lake's car. Lake identified himself by his alias, R. Scott Stapley. He had stolen a driver's license belonging to a man with that name, and he gave it to the cop. He told the officer that the car belonged to one Lonnie Bond. Lake gave him permission to search the vehicle. Wright found a gun silencer, an illegal item. Lake was placed under arrest, and his car was towed and impounded. A more in-depth search of the car yielded other curious items, like a stun gun and 9 slide photos of people. Those people were Lonnie Bond Jr., and Brenda O'Connor. The vehicle had been filed under a missing persons report concerning Paul Cosner. The license plate belonged to Lonnie Bond. At the beginning of an interrogation, Lake gave his real name and did the same with Charles Ng. After writing a farewell letter to Cricket, Leonard produced a cyanide pill from under his collar and swallowed it with some water. A few minutes later, he collapsed onto the floor and went into convulsions. First responders were contacted. He was taken to hospital and put on life support. Police met with Cricket. They told her they intended to search the property, which included Leonard Lake's bunker. At first, she told them no one had lived at the cabin. She then told them she would only allow them to search the building after she retrieved some personal items of a sensitive nature. When one investigator ran his hand over a door frame, he caught the texture of plastic. He found 3 transparent capsules that would later be found to contain cyanide. They found holes in the corner post of a bed and in the floor. They found eye bolts in a drawer that would have been inserted into the holes. This was for the purpose of restraining a person. Among the other items were a guitar case containing stickers which read "Shred" and "To be destroyed." There was also a video editing and playback equipment. When one of the officers realized what this was likely used for, Cricket said, "You guys have been here long enough. I think it's time you left." One of the officers tried to persuade her to let them search more extensively, but she wouldn't budge, so they applied for a search warrant. The bad news was that by the time it would be issued, Cricket would have had time to clean house. A warrant was issued when a serial number for a VCR that was missing matched up with a hybrid 8 generator. While the officers waited for reinforcements, they asked Cricket about the bunker. She told them about Lake's plans to survive a nuclear holocaust. She told them she didn't have a key and would not give them permission to search for one. The investigators searched the bunker. There were tools, provisions for survival like food and clothing, a single book, The Collector, of course. A third room, minuscule in its dimensions, at 3.5 feet wide and 6.5 feet long, contained a platform 2 feet wide, which bore a long foam rubber pad. It appeared the pad was used as a bed. A 5-gallon plastic bucket with a roll of toilet paper inside resided in a corner. The cell was soundproofed. A one-way mirror was embedded in the wall. It was clear to the officers that this must be a solitary confinement cell. Any amusement experienced in such a space is felt by the host, never by the guest. A typed sheet of listed rules was posted on one wall. The following are those rules transcribed verbatim. Rules. Number 1. I must always be ready to service my master. I must be clean, brushed, and made up with my cell neat. Number 2. I must never speak unless spoken to. Unless in bed, I must never look my master in the eye, but must keep my eyes downcast. Number 3. I must never show my disrespect, either verbally or silent. I must never cross my arms or legs in front of my body, or clench my fists, and unless eating, must always keep my lips parted. Number 4. I must be obedient completely and in all things. I must obey immediately and without question or comment. Number 5. I must always be quiet when locked in my cell. Number 6. I must remember and obey any additional rules told to me. I must understand that any disobedience Any pain, trouble, or annoyance caused by me to my master will be grounds for punishment. The investigators watched one of the videotapes, and it didn't take long for them to ascertain, due to the pornographic images, what the purpose of the bunker, and particularly the solitary confinement cell, was. Leonard Lake appeared on camera to give an introduction to the viewer so that they would know what to expect from his foray into snuff filmmaking. This is transcribed verbatim from that introduction. Good evening. It's Sunday, October 22nd, 23rd, something like that. Very close to my 38th birthday. And I'm starting this tape without script or without any real organization of what I want to say. But I do feel I need to explain. This tape, which you're hearing now, is going to be the lead-in of the various phases of construction of a building which, hopefully, will be the first of a series of underground buildings. But the main emphasis of the building, the whole justification for its expense and its effort, will be a hidden portion, a secret room, if we can call it that will house a cell, a jail cell, if you will. The purpose of that cell will be the imprisonment of a young lady who probably, at this moment, is unknown to me. These are troubled times. There are wars and rumors of wars going on. Today, 135 Marines were killed in Lebanon. Posterity may care less about this tape, care less about what I have to say. To be honest, I'm not too sure who I want to show this tape to, or if I will ever show it to anyone. But, for anyone that is interested, anyone who needs my justification and my rationalizations as to why I would want to imprison and, in fact, enslave a woman, they have only to look closely at me. I'm a realist. I'm 38 years old, a bit chubby, not much hair, and losing what I have. Not particularly attracted to women, or I should say, particularly attracting to women. All of the traditional magnets, the money, position, power, I don't have. And yet, I'm still very sexually active, and I'm still very much attracted to a particular type of woman who, almost by definition, is totally uninterested in me. Dirty old man. Pervert. I'm attracted to young women, sometimes even as young as 12. Although, to be fair, certainly up to 18 to 22 is a pretty much ideal range as far as my interests go. I like very slim women, very pretty, of course petite, small-breasted, long hair. But such a woman, by virtue of her youth, her attractiveness, her desirability too, the majority of mankind simply has better options. There's no particular reason why such a woman should be interested in me, but there's more to it than that. It's difficult to explain my personality in 25 words or less, but I am, in fact, a loner. I enjoy peace, the quiet, the solitude. I enjoy being by myself, and while my relationships with women in the past have been sexually successful, socially they've been almost always a failure. I've gone through 2 divorces, innumerable women, 50 to 55, I forget exactly the count. I'm afraid the bottom line statement is the simple fact that I'm a sexist slob. I enjoy using women, and of course women aren't particularly interested in being used. I certainly enjoy sex. I certainly enjoy the dominance of climbing on a woman and using her body. But I'm not particularly interested in the id, the ego, all the things that a man should be interested in to complement a woman's needs. Now I can fake these emotions, and I can fake them very well. And in the past, I've been very successful with attracting interesting and attractive women, simply because I did fake fairly well an interest in their needs and their requirements. So, momentarily, I had what I wanted, and they thought they had what they wanted. But, in the long term, I don't want to bother. What I want is an off-the-shelf sex partner. I want to be able to use a woman whenever and however I want. And when I'm tired, or satiated, or bored, or not interested, I simply want to put her away. Lock her up in a little room. Get her out of my sight, out of my life, and thus avoid what heretofore has always been the obligation to entertain or amuse or satisfy a particular woman or girlfriend's whims of emotional whatevers. Such an arrangement is not only blatantly sexist, but highly illegal. There's no doubt about it. It violates all of the human rights and blah, 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 and I'm going to spare posterity my concepts of other people's morality. I'm explaining my morality, what I feel, what I want, and as of this moment, I'm going to try to get. The advantages of such a situation are, of course, obvious, and, even beyond sexual, such a woman, totally enslaved, would be useful for the mundane chores I have to do, but am not particularly interested in doing. Clean house, washing dishes, etc. A slave. There's no way around it. Primarily a sexual slave, but nonetheless a physical slave as well. And I believe that if I can construct a holding cell, a place where I can put such a woman, where I can walk off and feel secure that she can't escape, that I can create a facility that is so stark and so empty, so cold, so quiet, so totally removed from the world, that fairly quickly, by a combination of painful punishments when I'm displeased, and minor rewards such as music or magazines or some such stuff, that I can quickly condition, this is my belief, that I can quickly condition a young woman to cooperate with me fully, and in fact, even look forward to cooperating with me, simply for no other reason than such cooperation would be a relief from boredom. Whether I can do this or not will remain to be seen. Obviously, I have never done such a thing before, and it may not work. However, I want to try. I want to try. Life as I am living it is boring. The challenge of this project, the excitement, the thrill of it, will be an exciting experience, even if it fails. As long as I don't get caught, it's very attractive. It's something that I've fantasized daily about. We'll see. I don't think there's much more to say on the subject. This, hopefully, will be a mystery. Lake began panting directly into the microphone. He said, "I can hardly wait." Adjacent to the driveway, one investigator ordered workers to dig into a soft spot in the soil. They unearthed a white plastic 5-gallon paint bucket with a sealed top. According to a report, the bucket contained, quote, several photo albums which depicted different white females in various stages of undress and completely nude. Leonard Lake's journal was also in the bucket. The remaining 2 articles of evidence were 2 videotapes, one labeled simply with the letter M. The label on the other tape read, M Ladies, Kathy, Brenda. The investigators played the latter tape. They were confronted with images of Kathleen Allen enduring mental torture, threats, forced stripping, and being coerced into giving Charles Ng a massage. As she did the latter, Lake took photos of her while issuing directions. In another segment of that tape, they witnessed the incarceration of a woman who lived little more than 100 yards from the bunker. It was Brenda O'Connor. She sat in a chair. She was fully dressed. Her hands were cuffed. She asked him about what happened to Lonnie Bond and Scott Stapley. Leonard Lake said, "Well, if you must know, I didn't do anything with them." Brenda said, "What did you do with them?" "I didn't do anything with them." Brenda, "Did you guys kill them?" Lake, "No, we didn't kill them." Brenda, are you going to let us go soon? Lake, probably not. Brenda, never? What are you going to do, kill us? Lake, that's sort of up to you, Brenda. Brenda was under the mistaken impression that Lake's name was Charles Gunner. Brenda, Charles, what are you going to do to us? Why are you doing this? Lake, 'cause we hate you. Brenda, what did we do to you? Lake, shut up. What a hairy day. Brenda, gotta get my baby down here. Lake, your baby is sound asleep, like a rock. Brenda, the neighborhood doesn't like you. The neighborhood doesn't like Lonnie. And we haven't liked you since you moved in. Brenda, so we'll leave. Lake, oh, you've already left. We've closed you down. We got together and we took you away. We took Scott away. Lonnie's going to earn a decent living for the rest of his life. Hopefully. Brenda, I know he is. Lake, your baby is going to be taken away. Lake has been panting. Lake, excuse the heavy breathing. Brenda, what do you mean, going to be taken away? Lake, there's a family in Fresno that doesn't have a baby. Brenda, you're not taking my baby away from me. Lake, they've got one now. Charles Ing appears in the frame. Ing, it's better than the baby is dead, right? Brenda, to Lake, what do you mean they've got one now? That's my baby. Lake, Brenda, you have a choice. We'll give it to you right now. Brenda, what? Lake, you can cooperate with us. By cooperating with us, that means you will stay here as our prisoner. You will work for us. You will wash for us. You will fuck for us. Or you can say, no, I don't want to do that, in which case we'll tie you to the bed, we'll rape you, and then we'll take you outside and shoot you. Your choice. Brenda, I'll cooperate. Ing, that's wise. Lake, that was fast. Ing, very wise. Brenda, are you really going to take my baby away from me? Lake, yes, we are. Personally, I don't think you're a fit mother. Brenda, where's Lonnie? Lake, they've been taken away. There's a place up in the hills where they'll split wood for the rest of their happy lives. Brenda, you mean you haven't killed them or anything? Lake, no, I haven't killed them. Although if they die, that's their problem. To be honest, I could care less. They had better cooperate, too. They're getting the same choice you're getting. To be honest, for all I know, maybe they are dead right now. Brenda, is that why you invited us over here for dinner? Ing, uh-huh. It's part of the game. Lake, you guys have been such assholes, Brenda. You know, Lonnie hasn't been all that bad. I'll give you that. Except for his shooting. But you've been an asshole like I can't believe. You have been so damn rude. And for no reason that I can figure. Brenda, 'cause I can't stand it up here. It's in the middle of nowhere. Lake, ah. They discussed some letters from Brenda to Lonnie that Lake read. Brenda, are you going to keep me up here the rest of my life or something? Lake, no. To be honest with you, I probably won't keep you here for more than a few weeks. But after that, we'll probably pass you around. There's other... Brenda was distracted, looking at one of the photography lights. Brenda, that light's hot. Lake, suffer. It's, there's people that are going to want to know that we did our job. There's already some guys that took Lonnie and Scott away. Brenda, why do you guys do this? Lake, we don't like you. Would you like me to put it in writing? Ing, it's done. Just take whatever we tell you. Brenda, I can't do this. Lake, we're going to sit back and enjoy ourselves. It's been a hectic day, and you are going to learn the true meaning of fuckface. Ing. Uh-huh. Lake to Ing. Where are the manacles? Ing. The manacles. Yeah. Ing produced a set of ankle clamps that were connected by a chain. Brenda, referring to the handcuffs, said, "Can you loosen these?" Lake, "We're going to take them off in a minute." Brenda, "You didn't hurt Lonnie, did you?" Ing took his shirt off. He walked up to Brenda. He reached over to the neckline of her jersey and said, "Since you say you're hot, I'll take it off for you." He tore her jersey open. Brenda, shocked, said, "What?" She began to cry. Lake, "Well, she could actually take it off herself, but..." Ing, "Well, with the cuffs on, it's hard." Lake, "Oh." Brenda, "I was going to have you take the cuffs off. I'm not hot." Ing was not deterred. He continued to tear at her shirt. Having finished with that task, only shreds of the garment remained on her. Her brassiere was revealed in the process. Lake, "Where are the manacles, Charlie?" Brenda, "Would you please just go get my baby? You can't keep my baby away from me for sex." Lake ignored her. He asked Ing again about the manacles. Ing took the manacles up. Lake, "Oh, put them on her, then take the handcuffs off." To Brenda, "I'm taking your baby because your baby is innocent in this. There's nothing..." Ing knelt in front of Brenda. He bound her ankles. Brenda, "But so am I. You two are crazy." Lake, "Well, maybe the whole neighborhood is crazy. The point is, you haven't been particularly innocent while you've been here, Brenda. In fact, you've been something of a first-class asshole. However, we are going to give you an opportunity to, make up for it." Ing brandished a knife. He cut the remaining strips of her jersey off her torso. Lake, "You're so crude, Charlie. I actually liked that t-shirt. Okay?" Ing, "It's gone now. Let's see what we're buying." Lake, "Okay." Brenda, "What are you going to do? Sell me or something?" Lake, "No, as a matter of fact, we're not going to sell you at all. We're going to give you away." Ing wielded the knife. He slipped it between Brenda's breasts. Brenda, "Don't cut my bra." Ing cut her bra in two. Her breasts were exposed. Ing, "Nothing is yours now. It'll be totally ours." Lake, "Take her handcuffs off, Charlie, and let her get out of that chair." Ing removed her cuffs. Ing, "Okay, you can cry and stuff like the rest of them, but it won't do you no good. We are pretty, cold-hearted, so to speak." Lake, "Frankly, I'm as hot as they come. Did you take the cuffs off of her?" Ing, "Yes." To Brenda, "I'll get my weapon handy in case you try to play stupid." Brenda, "I ain't going to play stupid. I don't want to get killed, you know." Ing, "Yeah, that's good." Lake, "Stand up, Brenda." Brenda hesitated. Lake, "Stand up!" Brenda complained again about the heat emitting from the lamp. She also notified Lake that she was feeling sick. Lake, "Suffer." Lake showed her an implement of torture that did not appear on screen. Lake, "See this, Brenda? I'm only going to show you once." Brenda, "What are you going to do? Beat me?" Lake, "It's a very vicious... As a matter of fact, I just might. But if you do exactly as you're told, without any fuss, no. Now, what's it going to be? Full cooperation? Are you ready for your shower, kid?" Ing, "Yeah." Referring to Brenda's jeans and underwear, Lake says, "Take them off and run her in." Brenda, "I'm going to take a shower?" Lake, "Uh-huh." Ing, "Clean you up." Lake, "Actually, you're both going to take a shower." Ing, "Yep, I always do that. It's luckier." Lake, See, Charlie owes me one, so, I get you first. But he's got his heart set on taking a shower with you, so who am I to turn him down? Ing to Brenda. You want to take a shower with the leg irons, or... Lake. No, take them off. Ing. Okay. Ing knelt to remove the ankle chains. She looked down on him. She covered her face with her hands for a moment. Lake, I think she believes us. You better believe us, Brenda, or you'll be dead. Ing. Right. Lake to Brenda. Take your jeans off. In fact, take your panties off, too, while you're at it. Ing to Brenda. Why don't you do it yourself while I do mine? Lake. Stand up and take your jeans off, Brenda. Brenda stood, albeit unsteadily. Brenda. Can I do it over there? That light is... Lake. Right there. Brenda. I'm getting dizzy. Lake. I don't care. Do what you're told. Brenda. I'll pass out. I'm afraid. I'm real dizzy. Ing. If you don't do it, I'll do it for you. So... Brenda's voice was quavering. Brenda. Well, wait till I'm not dizzy anymore. Ing. Okay, I'll give you a few seconds. Lake. Actually, Charlie, I can move the camera over to the couch. Move over to the couch, Brenda. That's away from the heat. Brenda moved to the couch. Ing told her to sit, and she complied. Brenda. Yeah, I feel shaky and real dizzy. Brenda took a couple breaths. Brenda, I'm going to pass out. I guess that light or something. Ing. Well, you can pass out, but we're going to wake you up. Lake. Brenda, I have a lot of animosity against you, and I would just as soon start you out with a nice firm whipping right now to make you believe how serious we are. Ing. This thing would hurt, believe me. Lake. How would you know? Ing chuckles. Lake grew tired of Brenda's dawdling. He told her to stand. Lake, slide them down, and then sit down. Brenda rose but moved slowly. Brenda, I'm just too dizzy. Lake, slide them down. All right. Charlie? Lake put the camcorder on a tripod. He walked into the frame. He held a handgun with a silencer. Brenda was shocked at the sight of the gun. She raised her hands, pushing her palms in the direction of the barrel. She fell into a sitting position. Ing, to Brenda. Yeah, that could be the truth, huh? Yep, sure. Her lips turning pale. Lake, her lips are pale anyway. You got the, Ing. Feeling better? You want some water? Brenda, I'll take something to drink. I've been sick all day. Real bad. She reached across the table seeking a cigarette. Lake, you know you don't want to smoke that. Did you give up smoking? Brenda, no. Lake, you have now. It seemed that Brenda was about to vomit. Lake, you do it, you clean it up. Brenda, well, dizzy and sweaty, hot, shaky. Lake finally conceded that the room was too hot for comfort. He asked Ing to turn on a different light located in the kitchen and to get some ice water for Brenda while he was in there. When Ing returned, he was carrying a glass. He gave it to Brenda. He stripped down to his underwear. Brenda. God, my ears. I keep hearing shh. Lake relocated to the couch. He sat to Brenda's left. He fondled her breasts. Referring to the dimensions of her body, he asked Ing, now tell me, isn't she a little better than Kathy? Ing, sort of. Maybe a little. Basically the same. Lake, no, Kathy's was... Lake stood. His voice trailed off for a moment. Lake, she just had a baby. She looks okay. This was inaccurate. Brenda gave birth to Lonnie Bond Jr. a year before this event. Ing estimated that Brenda was likely younger than Kathy. Lake said, no, she's a year older. Brenda complained of feeling dizzy again. All I can hear is the shh in the top of my head. Ing asked her if she wanted some aspirin. She declined. Brenda, I've been feeling like this the last couple of days. I don't know why. Like I'm pregnant or something. Ing, not the right time for that kind of shit. Brenda, I don't want to have this baby. Ing stepped aside. He picked up a stun gun. Ing, well, we told you what's going to happen to the baby. Just don't ask us, or else it'll be history. So, I don't want to hear nothing about it. It will be taken care of. Brenda, give my baby to me. I'll do anything you want if you... Lake, you're going to do anything we want anyway, and we don't want to have a dirty house around with a baby. Brenda, he can't live without me. Lake, he's going to learn. Come on, stand up. Jeans off, panties off, and everything else. Shove them down. To Ing, watch that she doesn't fall over in the shower and split her head. Ing, oh yeah, I won't. Resigned to her fate, Brenda surrendered. She unzipped her jeans and pulled them off. Reluctantly, she also removed her panties. Her naked body was now vertical and on display to both men. She appealed for clemency yet again. I don't need to take a shower. I just took a shower. Lake, you do too. Ing, both of us are going to make sure you're clean before we fuck you. That's the house rule. Lake, traditional. Lake grabbed her hand and brought her out of the frame. Ing followed. Their voices were still audible. Ing, let's make sure there's towels and all that other shit. Lake, give me your hand, Brenda. Give me your hand. Brenda, I don't. Her voice faded into silence. Lake, take good care of her, Charlie. Charlie, see if you cannot get her hair wet. Just wash her body. Not that you have to worry about it. Ing, you have to worry about it. Brenda asked a question, but she was too far from the camcorder's microphone to be heard clearly by the viewer. Lake, to Brenda, I don't know. Maybe he does, for all I know. I don't care. Ing, wrong with the showerhead. It pisses me off. Brenda said something that also could not be clearly recorded. Ing, okay. Lake, take care of her now, Charlie. Make sure she brushes her teeth and uses mouthwash. Ing, what the fuck's wrong with this shower? Taking a shower. The scene cut out abruptly into snow. Meanwhile, Leonard Lake was in convalescence in hospital, and there was a fevered manhunt on to locate Charles Ing. Police search dogs were brought on the property to sniff around the exterior environs of the bunker to search for human remains. During a break, one dog walked away and returned with a bone between its teeth. Some connective tissue was attached. A coroner would determine that it was extracted from a human body. Around this time, a sheriff and his deputy noticed a section of plywood on the ground, with ants crawling out underneath it with what appeared to be white gravel. The deputy was an expert on the naturally occurring flora and fauna of this area. He said, "You know what we're looking at, don't you? Those little white things are maggot larvae. That means there's dead flesh under there." Investigators did some digging and found more bone fragments, including a section of a human spine and teeth. Eventually, thousands of bone fragments were found. Most of them were not bigger than a fraction of an inch. During the third day of the search on the bunker's property, Leonard Lake was granted his wish. He avoided doing time in prison by dying from the complications of ingesting the cyanide. Eventually, entire bodies were dug up at the bunker site. One was an African-American man who was never identified. Another man was identified as Maurice Rock. Animal scavengers made identification difficult due to their predation. Another body found belonged to Cheryl Okoro. Digging also led to the discovery of plastic barrels. Among the items found in the barrels, money, jewelry, Leonard Lake's journal for 1983 and 1984, driver's licenses, social security cards, bank cards, checkbooks, miscellaneous identification documents belonging to Kathy Allen, Mike Carroll, Randy Jacobson, Paul Cosner, and Jeffrey Gerald. A box containing Paul Cosner's cards, papers, and eyeglasses. A sun visor from Paul Cosner's car that had been pierced by a bullet. Randy Jacobson's body was found. His body had been encased in lime. The pathologist found that he had ingested cyanide. The 2 babies that went missing were never found, though a burned hunk of human liver was declared to have been extracted from a child. The age of the child could not be ascertained. The best estimate was that they were anywhere from 3 to 7 years of age. Dental records confirmed that Kathleen Allen and Brenda O'Connor were buried among the victims. Less than a mile away, 2 bodies were found wrapped in sleeping bags. One was identified as Lonnie Bond. Details from his autopsy. Fully clothed except for shoes. A plastic bag wrapped around the head. Handcuffs on his wrists. A rope ligature binding his ankles. A ball gag consisting of a 2-inch red rubber ball and a leather thong was wrapped around his neck and head, with the ball in his mouth. Cause of death, a bullet to the head. Some of the flesh was stripped away by animals. The other body had been the property of Scott Stapley. The results of his autopsy. Buried fully clothed, but barefoot. Plastic garbage bag wrapped around his upper torso. Small white bag encasing the head. Gray duct tape binding the wrists behind the back and strapping his ankles together. Silenced with a ball gag. Cause of death, 3 bullets shot into his body and mouth. Fragments of bullet along with portions of his teeth were forced down his throat and tore his larynx. Right side of forehead pierced by bullet. Bullet fired into clavicle, fracturing 3 ribs. Charles Ng fled the country, but was apprehended in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, where one of his sisters resided. It was likely to happen since he was the focus of an international manhunt involving the FBI, Interpol, Scotland Yard, and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. He had relatives in Canada, England, and Hong Kong, so authorities in these locations were on the lookout for him. He was caught shoplifting. When he was confronted by police, he brandished a gun, which he later insisted was to be used to commit suicide. He was so rattled by the experience, he literally shit his pants. He had been living in a lean-to in a provincial park. The lean-to was searched, and a camera was found. After running a search on the serial number, it was determined to have been once the property of Robin Scott Stapley. When Ng was interviewed by police, he was asked if he knew Leonard Lake, and he said yes. Much of his knowledge about the murders was second-hand, and in many cases, he knew nothing. He was especially well informed about the fate of 1-year-old Lonnie Bond Jr., however. He said Leonard Lake strangled him and admitted to, quote, putting the baby's head between his thighs and twisting the upper body, unquote. Ng said to Lake, if you want to kill the baby, make sure he doesn't suffer. Ng did not confess to a role in any of the killings. His assertion was that Lake was the executioner in every case. Due to drawing a firearm after getting caught shoplifting, Ng was charged with attempted murder. The attempted murder charge was later dropped, though the charges of assault and robbery were upheld. He was ordered to spend a minimum of 4.5 years in jail at Edmonton Prison. Officials in the United States wanted Ng extradited to face charges of kidnapping, false imprisonment, burglary, and unlawful flight. Since he was not an American citizen, there was no guarantee that he would be extradited to the United States to face justice. He was transferred to a prison in the United States after serving his sentence in Canada. February 1999. Charles Ng was convicted of 11 out of 12 charges of the murder of 6 men, 3 women, and 2 infants. He was sentenced to death. He remains on death row at San Quentin State Prison. Thank you for listening to Human Monsters. Bye for now.